Hello, everyone, and welcome to another 2026 Oscar prediction video. It's our post-Cannes pre-Fall Film Festival edition, our June
Very
edition.
pre, very
Yeah, yeah.
pre.
I'm sure we'll probably do another one in August once we have the lineups for all the festivals
Yeah.
upcoming. But yeah, we haven't touched on these categories before. We've done other videos. We've done Best Picture twice before, but we have not done the acting categories. Lots of people's favorites, including, of course, Best Actress, everyone's favorite
And
of
the
the year.
Oscars themselves, the telecast,
Yes,
it's their favorite
yes, it
category.
is. Yeah, for
It's
sure.
what gets you to watch.
Mm-hmm. And it's looking like a pretty star-studded year based on some of the contenders. So, any thoughts, Anthony, before we give our insanely early, crazy, unpredictable, probably extremely wrong predictions on these acting
Hey, I mean,
categories?
listen, if you go back through the years, we're not that far off a lot of the time. I
We
feel like
had
it's
Mikey
often like,
Madison early.
yeah, it's like 50-50, I feel like. So, we'll see. Listen, I think with as you said, it's very star-studded, which I think is really exciting because there are narratives that people can really get into. I mean, you could make the argument that Julia Roberts and Jennifer Lawrence have the same narrative, just at
You
different points in
could.
their career. So, like, that's really exciting to see which ones, hold. It, of course, also matters that the film, if the film's in Best Picture, which if you haven't, go watch one video
What
previous,
we
and you
have
can
in
get
Best Picture.
what we have in Best Picture, because of course that will indicate where we are with the acting categories. But there's a whole lot of factors that yes, we have to wait and see. But I do think a lot of times you can get just a sense of where the race is starting from, given our conversation today. So I am very excited to look at this, and as you said, it's a really interesting race.
It is, for sure. Little disclaimer, we recorded this video about over 2 weeks ago at this point, so some of our, at least mine, editing this have changed. Don't want to spoil the video, but just know there are some things, maybe some people who I have winning that I'm a little more iffy about, maybe some people who are starring and leading in the film Sinners, who I would probably have in my 5 now at this point. This isn't completely up to date, but it's for the most part pretty up to date. So yeah, without further ado, enjoy. Best Actress. Okay. Well, we'll start with we have once again both of our lists here. I want to start off jumping off of what you just said right there, which is, well, one, I don't feel confident in this because as we've seen in the past few years, like you mentioned, especially in this race, it comes down the winner. If it's not a sweep, the winner ends up being whoever is in the stronger film. That's how Emma Stone beat Lily Gladstone. That's how Mikey Madison beat Demi Moore. And I think if you look at who is probably going to be in the strongest film in this category, I think it's going to be Renata Rensby for Sentimental Value. I do think that's going to be the strongest film out of any of these. But something, we'll get to her later on, but something about her and in that film, foreign language performance, it's a, by lots of people's regards from the reviews, it seems like a smaller role than Worst Person in the World. It seems like lots of people leaving the film are mentioning Skarsgård before her, and I think it's usually hard to win an Oscar when you're not the first performance people mention leaving the movie. So all of that leads me to Jennifer Lawrence and Julie Roberts are who I'm really between as being the two potential like sweepers of this year, like a Renee Zellweger. I think with Lawrence,
Renee
many are
Zellweger, in that it's her second win, sort of
her second
conversation.
win, and also
Yeah.
like I think Renee Zellweger was the last time we had a full sweep. I feel like all those other years, this race has been divided. In all those divided races, it's whoever was in the stronger film. But
Mhm.
the Renee Zellweger year, like Scarlett Johansson was in a stronger film because
Well,
I was in Picture,
what
but
I'm
she
kind of
was she
looking at,
swept.
I'm kind of looking at the 2017-18 season where Sally Hawkins, of course, was in the stronger film. Shape of Water won
Mm-hmm.
Best Picture, but she
But
was never really
McDormand
talked
swept.
about. Yes, but she was not really ever talked about. The talk was Frances McDormand, who swept.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody was going to surmount her, it was going to be Margot Robbie and I, Tonya, I feel, or
Yeah.
even Saoirse Ronan and Lady Bird, who won the Golden Globe for musical comedy, where Frances won drama. So I kind of see that's how the season is going to shape up. Because I do think there's still a bias among the people, members of the acting branch, that unless it's like sort of like a given, like a Jean Dujardin year, I feel like either the more international actors just don't have the same clout within the actors branch to get them to the top of the list. They're
Mm-hmm.
just not as invested in their careers, unfortunately. But they are invested in Jennifer Lawrence and Julia Roberts, two it girls who have, I think, gone beyond that period of their career, and I think are really making more just some really interesting choices. And I think it right now I agree with you. I think Jennifer Lawrence is the front runner. But I think we have to see how these movies perform. They could be very divisive and they could turn people off, and then they could have another baby girl in their hands. I do think that's possible for both of them.
The way between those two, I'm leaning more towards Lawrence. One, because we know more about it. We have reviews for the film, and for her performance, we don't have either of those for After the Hunt. Um, and everything I've read about the performance indicates that it's a pretty big, emotional, showy performance. I also think you can kind of compare it similarly to Emma Stone. You know, J Law winning an Oscar early in her career, then coming back like a decade later in a weirder, more risky film, giving a like kind of more risky, bigger performance that lots of people consider her best work. That's pretty much exactly what happened to Emma Stone in terms of getting a second Oscar. They're both very charming on awards campaigns.
Oh, yeah.
Movie is obviously going to put a whole lot of money behind this campaign in particular.
I also
she could sweep if the film is strong enough. I think the issue I run into is what you mentioned. It could just be like with Nicole Kidman and Baby Girl, that was the only shot the film had at getting a nomination. And as we see, your film needs to be semi-strong. It's pretty hard lately to get a lone acting nomination. I don't think there was a single one last year. So your film has to be strong enough to at least break into some other categories, especially for her to like sweep. So I don't feel great about that, but I don't feel great about anyone winning right now. So that's what I'm going with.
I also think that the worry I have is what I mentioned in our Best Picture analysis, which is that Lynn Ramsey has never been an Academy taste. And for the Academy to do such a 180 that not only is she going to be, this film's going to be so well regarded, it's going to get multiple above the line nominations, but it's going to get a win in one of the top categories. Like that is a little bit of a jump, but we have to see how it performs. This could be because of its stars. I mean, it could endear more people to her, and I hope it does. I hope people, and they go back and watch Morgan Collar, and we need to talk about Kevin, you know, because I mean, Lynn Ramsey is such a unique lens, and I'm very much looking for, this is one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Julia Roberts stands out among this list because she's the only actor of a certain age, which is ridiculous. But when you look at Jennifer Lawrence, Renata Reinsve, Jesse Buckley, Amanda Seyfried, that is kind of a similar vibe for a similar
it's all
actress. Do you think they're going to cannibalize? Well. Yes, well, that too. But like, do you think is that I'm more looking at the age of the actor? Do you think the type of role that are they going to cannibalize each other? Because looking at it, I feel like there's no world where all of them get it.
I'm trying to think back to like that 2023 year. What was that? That was,
well, you had Annette Bening in there.
That she was the more veteran person, which I think there's always at least one spot for the more veteran actor. I think that's probably Roberts this year. But I feel like everyone else that year, I'm trying to remember, was on the
we had
same age range.
Emma Stone, Lily Gladstone, Carey Mulligan, and Sandra Hüller. So I feel like, I don't know. I think like there's a world where Jennifer Lawrence, Renata Reinsve, Jesse Buckley, and Amanda Seyfried could all audition for the same role. And to me, that says, I don't know if they're all going to get in here. Very much so. Because I think the acting branch is a large branch, and they tend to want different things, and they tend to there are different partisans for different sorts of acting. And so even though these are different movies in different genres, I just wonder whether there's a space for all of them compared to some of the other women that are in contention that we'll mention when we get to my list.
Yes, yeah. Well, I guess quickly, Roberts, who is the other person I'm considering, I even more so than Lawrence, I can honestly see her as a sweeper like Renee Zellweger. I feel like that fits her more so just because she is more veteran and kind of similar to Renee Zellweger. She hasn't been in this kind of awards level drama in a minute. I think voters have probably missed her. And if the movie is good enough and her performance is good enough, and you even just have enough people being like, this is career best work, then she could just easily sweep like Zellweger did. I've seen some people say this is like her Tar, because she's playing like a university professor who's dealing with her past, the whole cancel culture aspect of it. So
which didn't win.
Did not win
as much as we think it. Sometimes it did. You know, we're like Kate Blanchett. She won for Tar. Nope.
I don't see a Michelle Yeoh here though. Those are my. I'm really only considering right now those top two to win. We already mentioned with Reinsve. I think her film is going to be incredibly strong, the strongest out of any of them here. It would need to win Best Picture and like be a like pretty strong sweeper for her to come along. I feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like even then, Skarsgård has a better shot at winning than she does. So
Stellan, I feel like we have to.
Yes, there's so many.
Yeah. Until people see the movie, we have to be clear about what Skarsgård we're talking about.
Yes, Stellan Skarsgård over in supporting actor.
Yeah. So I feel pretty good about the top three. I would be pretty surprised if those three miss. I have Cynthia in the middle there, but I kind of would be again, those movies would really have to falter for, I think, those three women not to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
I threw Cynthia Erivo in here just because, again, we're in no man's land when it comes to this sort of performance being, recognized, because there's no precedent. Now, she is going to be taken care of in Best Original Song, where we likely will see her get her EGOT and win an award there. And I think many people are going to look at that as awarding her for the entire creative effort that was Wicked. But that still doesn't stop someone from getting in, when it comes to nominating. I mean, Lady Gaga was also nominated for Best Actress, even though it was conventional wisdom, by that point at least, she would be winning for Original Song. So I still think she could get in for both. And yeah, I just think that it's given how much love and passion there is for the movie, and because to me, it does feel different from a lot of these other character pieces, indie character pieces. It's a bigger performance, and just knowing the emotional wallop that this story will end with, if they stick the landing and the movie isn't divisive, I think that she could very likely get in here.
I'm just mainly not putting her in there because of the fact that there is no precedent here.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think, I don't know, I feel like there's going to be so many great options here. I feel like people will be like, oh, we nominated her last year. I think the only time someone has gotten into the lead acting categories for playing the same character was Cate Blanchett for Elizabeth. Like even Pacino for Godfather.
Well, Pacino was supporting, which is why he protested and didn't go to the Oscars that year. And then he was put in lead for part 2, I believe. Because those are De Niro and supporting.
Those are even like more dramatic stuff that appeals to the Academy more. I feel like the fact that it's also a franchise, I don't know, there's too much stuff, too many like things that non-precedents for it that is holding me back from going for it. But
among these contenders, does she win the Golden Globe for Best Actress Musical or Comedy? Or any of these, do we imagine, will factor into that section?
I don't think any of the ones we have, unless Amanda Seyfried, I think that would be under musical. Okay. So she could potentially win that.
That would be funny, given what we know that she was one of the final Glindas.
Yeah, and what she has said
with Cynthia Erivo. But listen, if Amanda Seyfried made this list, I just think she's remarkable.
I think it's definitely more so than I think a lot of these wild card, because we don't know really much about it. We know it's Anne Lee, based off the historical figure. She was like a leader of the religious movement centered around dancing and singing, based off Mamma Mia, 2 things that we know Amanda Seyfried is great at. And I feel like she's a previous nominee. I think people are like, she just won an Emmy within the last few years. I feel like people are really like looking to award her at any chance that they are given. Mona Fastvold and Brady Corbet are they wrote characters in their last film that got 3 Oscar nominations and 1 Oscar win, and I feel like they're going to write a juicy role for her. I feel like it's going to premiere at Venice, and I have a feeling that A24 is going to pick it up, and I feel like that's going to be their actress here.
You got a crystal ball there?
That's my crystal ball prediction.
Your source?
Because all these other ones have distributors currently, so we know what these studios are.
I mean, listen, I think at this point last year, The Substance didn't have a distributor, or The Brutalist. So
they got Substance after Cannes, so it would have at this point.
It would have been around this time.
Jessie Buckley. Other one we have in common is Jessie Buckley, yes, for Hamnet, which just makes sense. I think even if the film isn't super strong, this kind of role where she's like playing Shakespeare's wife, their kid dies, there will be lots of grieving, lots of emotion. She's a previous nominee. I feel like it'll be strong. Like her performance will be strong enough to get in there, even if the film doesn't perform, which I think we're both iffy on.
We're iffy on, but we both my 10, have it in. Yeah, we both have it in. And The Lost Daughter, which didn't make the 10, she got in for Best Supporting Actress. So I feel like that was a weird year where like the amount of the amount of women nominated in those categories, lead and supporting, that didn't have Best Picture contenders. It was very, very odd. But still, the fact that they paid attention to her I would think that was right around the cusp when she was It's like it wasn't even like an Emma Stone situation where she'd been so popular and then she made like Birdman and then was like, okay, let's pay attention to her. I think people lean in to Jessie Buckley, and so if she's in a Best Picture contender, I think she would probably go along for the ride. Which is why if I'm choosing between her and Amanda Seyfried right now, I'm leaning Hamnet and Buckley. But I mean, given the strength of that Brutalist crew reteaming and Amanda Seyfried, I could very easily switch. I don't know if both of them are going to get in there, but I think one of them most likely will. So we just have to see which one.
The one who I took out, who I had at number 5 before in our honorable mentions here, It's Tessa Thompson for Hedda. It's too much, even more so than Anne Lee, of a wild card. I mean, we know equally pretty much nothing about both of them besides like the premises and the people behind it. But the people behind Anne Lee, it just lends a little more credibility to me than the Nia DaCosta, who did
Mhm.
Marvel's Candyman, and she did her like first film was with Tessa Thompson, and it's still her best reviewed film. But I mean, she's playing Hedda Gabler, one of the best roles like on a stage for a woman for an actress to play. So we know it's going to be a juicy role. It's a reimagining of it. I think I don't think it's in a modern context, but it's reimagining the context of the play in some sort is what we know. Um, and it's also Amazon MGM, and I don't feel confident about them getting. They're not great at campaigning in general, as we've seen in the past few years. They just barely get in to Best Picture. So I'm not feeling great about having.
Even, I mean, Saltburn did it. Sometimes
Oh yeah,
Contenders, I think other studios could have, they dropped the ball. So,
yeah.
I think it's tough, and I also think it's like somebody has to explain to me why Tessa Thompson wasn't more in the conversation for something like Passing. Like I just
She
don't.
should have been
It's
nominated,
like she's not in the club. I just
and that
don't. And
was
so it's
Netflix.
yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I think she's definitely in this. I would probably say her and Rose Byrne. I think actually, if the right
Mm.
campaign, because Rose Byrne I heard was like one of the few actors to like win all these top prizes at all these different
She's
like
won at
international film festivals.
Like the Berlin Film Festival. Yeah,
So she's brilliant. And so if the right campaign were behind her to show this is a serious
that's what I worry about.
but imagine I could see Rose Byrne having a Melissa McCarthy moment with Can You Ever Forgive Me? Like, oh, it's this comedic actress who we've written off as like being serious, as actually a great bona fide dramatic actress. I could definitely see that narrative working for her. They just need the right campaign to like bolster her to the top. But
I
I
just
would put her higher. I think she's much
Yeah,
more likely than like Emma Stone and Begonia, because I just don't think another Yorgos Stone collaboration is going to get in there. And Sydney Sweeney, who I think will go the way of Zendaya. I don't know. I think like Zendaya with Malcolm and Marie. I think just the Euphoria actors I think are still looked upon a little bit television at this point.
yeah, that's
So
fair. Yeah.
I would jump Rose Byrne
Um,
up.
yeah, I could. I just worry also that Jennifer Lawrence is going to eat her nachos because it's a very similar similar role. They're both centered around like motherhood, and I don't think directly postpartum depression, but like emotions after having a baby. Um, that I worry about I don't know if both of them would be able to get in there. And also A24, I just don't have complete faith in them in pulling off like a bunch of different campaigns. As we saw last year, they kind of just singled in on Brutalist. And I just also, I don't know, the fact that it's premiered at multiple festivals, it's gotten good buzz, but it hasn't like gotten like the same level as buzz as other festival films. That it just has
Yeah.
me a little hesitant.
I
But
grant you,
yeah,
but also like that could be the case for Hamnet. That could be the case for some of the movies we have on the list.
but I feel
So
like with the
like,
talent attached and the fact that it's later on in the year, Hamnet is regardless going
yeah,
to garner more
that's
buzz
fair.
than this film, which could still hit the fall
Yeah.
festivals. Like they could still put it at TIFF or
Mhm.
something.
Just
But
if Hamnet or Anne Lee like falters more than we're expecting, then I could see something like Rose Byrne popping up. So
mhm,
we'll see.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and like you said, Emma Stone for Begonia. We don't even know if she's going to be lead or supporting. The character in the original film, at Space Off, would definitely be supporting, but the fact that it's Yorgos, I feel like maybe he beefed up the role.
is there any
But
other
yeah,
female contender? Like, is there anybody to
Alicia
put Emma here?
Silverstone is also in the film, so I guess
Because
maybe she
then,
would be in
yeah,
supporting.
they might put her here to give Alicia some space. I don't know. Listen, Emma Stone is one of, if not the greatest
It'd be great
actors
to see her
working
and J Law
today.
nominated
Yeah,
together.
her, yes. In this of her generation, I think it's hard to argue who was better. I think people started to sense this with Kinds of Kindness, that the like Yorgos has gotten everything out of her that he could. And so I wonder whether there's anything exciting or fresh to this collaboration that will bring people back in to where they
She
were
shaved
with
her
The
head.
Favorite and Poor Things. She did shave her head. I worry that Eddington and Begonia might like like be lumped in together. Like,
I feel like
sometimes
Eddington is done, at
it's
least in
done, but
terms of awards.
like the image of like Emma Stone's year in movies. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
It's because I feel like they're both going to be quirky, artsy. I feel like Ari Aster or Yorgos have very similar like creative
that's the other thing with
inclinations.
this film. This is the first um Yorgos Lanthimos film that is produced by Ari Aster. Like he's directly
Yes, they
involved in
like
this,
they're
which
just. I
makes me
think they're going
think
to be linked.
it's not as awards appealing as his previous films, which are not produced by Ari Aster. I think Ari Aster even like started this whole like the whole production of this film in particular.
Which is great. And I think I'm so looking forward to the movie. Like, this has
yeah.
nothing to do with I will be first in line, but we're predicting what's going to be in contention. And so, you know, I think
we're both begonia doubters.
we're begonia. When it comes to awards, I guess we're begonia doubters.
Yeah. And Sydney Sweeney, I just don't think she's there yet to have, like, I think if she were further along in her career, this could kind of be an I, Tonya moment for her, but I don't think she is there in her career yet, so I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah, because Margot Robbie had already been in The Wolf of Wall Street. She was already a movie star when it came to Focus and Suicide Squad. So, like, she had a more Emma Stone trajectory where people knew of Margot Robbie, and a lot of the story behind I, Tonya, which I think is true for Christy Martin, because I know Sydney Sweeney likes to produce a lot of her material, is that people really regarded that Margot Robbie produced I, Tonya and made this happen for her.
Sydney Sweeney is producing this. Yeah.
So that's the one thing that I think people could lean into with Sydney Sweeney. I wonder how many people from above our generation who maybe don't watch Euphoria want to,
who aren't buying her,
take the time to care about her. Yeah. So, you know, we'll see.
Yeah. We shall indeed. I think that's about it. Anyone who also June Squibb, which I had on here earlier, but the reviews out of Cannes for Eleanor the Great weren't amazing. So I don't think, unfortunately, I would love to see it. I love June Squibb, but I unfortunately don't think that will happen. I think that's pretty much everyone that we've covered in Best Actress. Let's get on to the less interesting.
I was category. This conversation will be double the length of all the others.
Yes, it will be, because it's all of our favorites. Let's look at Best Actor, where I don't feel great about this winner either, but I have Timothee Chalamet winning for Marty Supreme. Part of me feels like the fact that he got so close last year and the fact that he's going to be back around this year, people are just gonna be like, okay, we'll do it this time.
No, I think that's exact. It's like Renee Zellweger. You mentioned she was so close with Chicago, and then Cold Mountain came along, or Leo was so close to Wolf of Wall Street, and then The Revenant. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. If not, unless the slideshow is going to surprise me, in which case I agree with you. We agree.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think this is going to happen for him. I think that people love him, and honestly, I think in retrospect that SAG speech did help him. Also, Viola Davis, her reaction to it, I think also helped give it context. But
I feel like everyone in the industry liked that speech. I feel like it was more the online.
Yeah, maybe film Twitter. At first, I was like, I have the thing of like I get worried on behalf of people, so I think that's what I was like. I don't know how I feel because I love him, and I honestly, if we're going back, I wanted him to win the Oscar. I thought he was great in The Complete Unknown. Out of those 5, I'm trying to remember the other.
I wanted Sebastian Stan to win the Oscar, but
he was good. But again, I loved Timmy. I was a much bigger fan of that movie, I think, than other people.
Yes.
Again, in the film Twitter world, at least than you. If there's a movie with music, I'm going to like it more than you. Which brings us to Jeremy Allen White, which is the site of
our yearly biopic.
Yeah, it's going to get in here. I'd be shocked if it didn't, especially because now that as we talked about, Michael has moved far away from this year. I think people are going to be really invested, and this will be the movie here. I do think what hurts him, though, follow my logic here.
Okay.
Like, we're in 3D chess world.
We are.
Unless he's like groundbreaking, like stunning good, and it's Jeremy Allen White, he very well could be. I think people are going to look at him and Timothée Chalamet and be like, well, we didn't give it to Timmy last year for doing the same sort of thing.
This is his welcome to the party.
It's his welcome to the party, but there's no. I feel like as a voter, I'd be like, well, if I didn't give it to Timmy for the same sort of role, how can I give it to Jeremy Allen White against Timmy?
He's done great on the TV side of things. I think this will be his transition to the film side of things in terms of awards. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like neither Bruce Springsteen nor Bob Dylan are like as showy of like personas as someone like a Freddie Mercury with Rami Malek. So I don't feel like he's going to win. But I mean, he's got brown eye contacts in, and they kind of look scary. So maybe that will help.
Yeah, I think Bruce is more showy than Bob, but still not as showy as
Freddie Mercury is another level above. Yeah, for sure. So, but I feel like number 2, I don't think he'll win, but I feel like he's solidly in there just because it's a biopic. I feel like
those 2 are locked. I think those 2 are locked. Yeah. I would be shocked if they didn't get in. And
especially because in Marty Supreme, it seems like, especially based off the set photos, like that is going to be maybe similar to like an Adam Sandler and Uncut Gems, where it seems like it's going to be a lot. Like his character is like going through a lot. It's like a lot of different emotions, the whole range.
And I'll say, because I do think there's a lot of talk about why Uncut Gems didn't connect at the Oscars, and you could make so many different arguments, and I would believe you, as far as that was the year where the awards were pushed up, so it had a, I think, after Christmas wide release, or a Christmas wide release. So, and how wide did it really go? So, like, did it have time to connect? It's also very out there and very intense. I remember the person sitting next to me, as soon as it was over, said that was the worst movie she's ever seen in her life. So to some people, it's not their taste. And also, I do think Adam
was not
Sandler.
as strong back then as they are now.
Yes, they had Moonlight, but of course, it wasn't. They weren't the machine I think they are today. And also, Adam Sandler was carrying a legacy of comedy films that some people were unenthused with, or some people were insulted by. So I think there was all those things. I don't think that Marty Supreme necessarily will follow in the same trajectory. I think we're in a different landscape, and I think Timmy is going to be looked upon, I think, a little bit more favorably than Adam Sandler was back then.
Well, one of them has 2 Oscar nominations and one has none currently.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think that also helps.
So you think they're gonna? Don't you think they're going to both win the same night?
Yes, spoiler. I think that's going to be a great photo op. Because they
chalamet.
Yeah, exactly. That will be a great moment for both of them. I feel like Jennifer Lawrence fits in perfectly as well. George Clooney for Jay Kelly. It's George Clooney. He's a previous Oscar winner. He hasn't, kind of similar to Julia Roberts, who they starred in a rom-com a few years ago.
I both want them nominated now.
But there's kind of like his big return to
actors
this
on
material.
actors. Come on, that would be perfect. Even if they don't get nominated, that's what's got to happen. Listen, George Clooney, he's coming off of a very successful run on Broadway. I mean, he snuck into Best Actor in a leading role for the Tonys, despite many people thinking, like, how did he get in there? And he beat out, Denzel Washington and Kit Connor and Robert Downey Jr. So he's coming off of a hit, and he's also in a big Netflix movie, and Netflix usually does very well with getting their actors nominated. So, yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely Netflix's big push, at least in terms of acting as well. I don't think Frankenstein is going to be an acting push. And from what we know about the character here, he's having a bit of a I think it's described as an adult coming of age, so he's going through stuff. Those are the 3 we have in common. Now we get into our differences here. As we've said before in the last video, I'm a rental family believer, so I've got Brendan Fraser, previous winner a few years ago, getting in here. It's a juicy role. He's playing an actor in the film, working for a family who has him do different jobs, portraying and pretending to be different people. So it sounds juicy enough to me that I feel like if I have enough faith in the film to be a top 5 contender, that he'll probably come along. And then Willem Dafoe, who I have getting in for Late Fame, which is I don't completely even know if it's coming out this year, so take it with a grain of salt. I feel like it is based off the production schedule, but who knows? Maybe they could push it. But it's about a poet who late in his life, his earlier works never gained much traction, and late in his life they do gain traction with a group of young people, and he finds, as the title says, some late fame and everything that goes down with that. Willem Dafoe, all of his previous nominations, none of those films are in Best Picture, so he is strong enough to get in, even if his film overall is not. He's very well liked, and it sounds like a great role, so that's why I'm going with that.
I could see both. I think both are in contention. I think I would give more stock right now in Willem, as you said, because he can get in even if the movie doesn't. I'm not quite sure if Brendan Fraser is going to be looked upon as this actor that's now always in contention, or if just The Whale was such a demonstrative piece of acting that he was able to get in there. But he is an Oscar winner, so it's worth considering. I just think right now I'm going to go with 2. One, I think definitely more reliable pick, which I think Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes, his last 2 movies. Though? Yeah, well, listen, I don't think
it's Tom Hanks stage where everyone's they take him for granted, and it's oh well, he's always good. It's Leo. He was good in Don't Look Up. He was good in Curse of the Flower Moon. He's going to be good.
But I think, listen, to be fair, I think the problem with Tom Hanks is that he pulled off the twofer, the 2 back-to-back.
That's impressive.
And I think that really colored how people saw him. And he also, I think, is making movies at a greater volume than Leo has been.
Much greater, yeah.
So, and frankly, I can't really explain why we took Tom Hanks for granted. I can't
either.
When I look back,
I think it's just that people are well, he's always good. I think he has to be doing career best work for some reason.
Yeah, it just doesn't
surprise people.
But that never stopped Meryl, which is what I don't understand. Why did it not? Meryl can get nominated for Devil Wears Prada, as she should, and probably should have won. But Tom couldn't get nominated like I would nominate him for Toy Story. I mean, he's Tom Hanks. But anyway, I do think though that Don't Look Up and Kills the Flower Moon, they're using his star power, but he's not really what those movies are all about. I mean, they're ensemble pieces, and he's not the emotional core of either. So, and it's yet to be seen how big a role he has in this, but I could see him doing well. I think that Paul Thomas Anderson does well by his leads. I mean, he won Daniel Day-Lewis an Oscar. He got him nominated for Phantom Thread. So I'm going on that. I just think the strength of DiCaprio and Paul Thomas Anderson together makes me right now believe that he could get in. And then I'm going to go all in on Michael B. Jordan. I think that talk about an actor that everybody just loves. And I think people have been waiting for this opportunity. He's the lead of a film, as far as a movie that's been in this space, I don't think he has been in since Fruitvale Station. And so the fact that it's a dual role, his energy is at the center of so many of these scenes. He's a bona fide movie star. I just think that, and I think people are selling, and they would be smart to sell the creative relationship between Coogler and Jordan. And I think they're going to make the argument that we see a lot of times, which is that you can't have one without the other if you're going to nominate these people. I think that I feel very strongly for him. I think I'm only putting him at 5 because I still think we have to wait to see Sinners be accepted. It's early, but there is a part of me that wants to put him at 4 or even 3. I do think that he could very likely get in there. I don't think since Timmy have we had an actor, a male actor, come around and prove themselves as a movie star. And I think Michael B. Jordan is the next. I think he deserves that. And so I think this could be where we finally anoint him with some Oscar gold, or at least a nomination. So I'm feeling good about him. I'm going to put him in. I feel strongly.
Yeah, I'm still iffy on Sinners. I feel like we'll get to it in another category, Sinners getting acting nominations. Part of me feels like that's not the kind of film that does get acting nominations. And I do feel like when you leave the film, I don't think he's the performance most people are the top on their tongues. I feel like people mentioned Delroy Lindo, Miles Catton, other people before him. But it's definitely possible. I think he will be right there alongside Ryan Coogler for the entire awards campaign. So he'll be around and people will be remembering him. And like you said, he is a definite movie star. There's lots of respect for him.
So I think
when was the last time Best Actor was this young out of your 5 year? I feel like that's a pretty young group.
True. But who is, let me pull up the other contenders, because I think this year is just drifting young. I mean, actress, we talked about it.
So far, yeah.
It's just, that's how it is. It's more uncommon for Best Actor than Best Actress, but still, I would say though, if this is the 5, it's not quite young. That is going to be the sexiest movie star. We're going back to old Hollywood with this. I'm just looking at it, I'm like, wow.
Who else we've got lined up? Jesse Plemons for Begonia. Maybe we could fit that. But everything I've read about this film is that he is the standout performance. And if I believed in the film overall, I would definitely have him in my 5. I'd maybe even consider him a win contender if I thought the film was going to be in Best Picture. Previous nominee, he's beloved, and it sounds like a juicy role. But I don't believe in the film, so I don't have him in there. We already talked about Leo. Dwayne Johnson for The Smashing Machine is an interesting one. I feel like I'm underestimating this film overall. Something about it tells me it could be this year's The Whale, where it gets 2 lead acting or 2 performances in there. I don't know about makeup.
That it could be The Iron Claw, juicy, which gets really close, but then it doesn't. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of people. You want to know what I think it is? I think it's this year's Hustlers. I think it's the movie that's going to trick everybody into thinking it could go all the way, but then he could get in at SAG. This reeks of SAG nomination. Hard. But listen, I've enjoyed a number of his films. This has nothing against him. I just think the Oscars are going to be a little Tony, and they're gonna omit him. I think we have to see the movie. I think Emily Blunt is going to do a lot for this movie because I think coming off of her own first Oscar nomination for Oppenheimer, I think that she's going to give the movie a little bit more gravitas than I think Hustlers had. Imagine if Jennifer Lopez was starring against Emma Stone or Margot Robbie, people that were a little bit more, that could lead Jennifer Lopez into the club, and I think Emily Blunt could do that quite effectively. So we'll see. I would probably put him at, you have two people that I have on my
Some
list on
people,
this list.
yeah,
I would, he would be high on my honorable mentions. The thing about Oscar Isaac is that the fact that he wasn't able to get in for Inside Llewyn Davis makes me worry, especially because Frankenstein could be Best Picture contention, but it also could, fall short. So I think right now it's a little too early to call.
Yeah, I think also interesting with Frankenstein and Sinners, if they're able to coexist. They probably could be able to coexist. Maybe not in Best Picture. I can't think of the time like two horror films. I know both of them are described as not horror by their directors, but two
Get
genre
Out and Phantom
films.
Thread kind of the same year.
A little bit, not quite the same as Frankenstein and Sinners,
I
I would
agree.
say, but we'll see. I think Frankenstein will regardless do well below the line. Based off the trailer, it seems like Oscar Isaac has a pretty juicy role, but I'm not completely.
He better, or
You would hope.
this is a different adaptation of Frankenstein that
Yeah,
I'm familiar with.
yeah. You would hope the titular character, but I still don't have. I'm not completely sure about it. Above the line, definitely a tech contender. And then lastly, Wagner Moura for The Secret Agent got great reviews. He won Best Actor out of Cannes. But if you read the reviews themselves, it's a very subtle performance. It is even more subtle than, say, Fernando Torres and I'm Still Here, which was still a very subtle performance that also had more over time. I think that film was also in Best Picture, which I don't think, based off what I've read about this film, it's just too slow. It's not as, I feel like I'm Still Here was a little more, even though I loved it, traditional in terms of the biopic structure that I think appealed to the Academy more than I think the way, from what I've read, this film is
And
structured.
it had the biggest cheerleader in the Brazilian audience, which
this will have that as well. This is both Brazil.
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like it's a little different because of Fernanda Torres's legacy with her mother. Like that was
totally.
like the fact that not only would she become the second Brazilian actress to be nominated after her mother, but that her mother was in the movie playing the older version. Like that was a perfect storm of like capturing the Brazilian passion for cinema, which I just don't think any performance is going to capture that lightning in a bottle sort of moment, after the Golden Globes and everything leading us to the Oscar nomination. So, but I stand to be corrected.
Supporting actress, I'm betting hard on Rental Family. And from what I have read, I have spoken, to keep it on the down low, to people who have seen the film and can talk about it on the down low. She is a standout performance in it, from what I have heard. And it just kind of, something about it gives the energy of, like, especially if I have it in picture, getting multiple acting nominations, it's Searchlight's main push. I feel like this is its best bet acting wise. And she just matches up with some like previous supporting actress winners like a Yoo Jung-yoon and Minari, even someone like, say, Art. Like, I feel like you can like break out on your first nomination in supporting actress more so than lead actress.
Divine Joy Randolph,
Ariana DeBose. Definitely, I feel like this is where you can find a breakout, and that's what I'm.
It almost feels odd that
great,
like the ingenue thing that we always talked about with actress is also kind of creeping into supporting actress too a little bit, So it's curious. Listen, I think that it is possible. But I am more bullish on Rental Family right now. Because I just want to see more people talking about it. I feel like the only person I see talking about it right now is you. So,
no, that's fair. I think it's going to go to TIFF, and it'll do well there.
And then I think I can start assessing it, because I think right now it just makes more sense for me to pick names that, like, even if all 5 of them don't get in, it's more likely that they get on than some of these other contenders. Like, I'm going to challenge you to say the lovely woman who's number 5 on your list, like, bravo. Or Gesundheit. But so I think that, like,
we know about people have raved about her performance already.
People have raved about her. But is there a world for both of them to get in? Possibly. But if you're
last year was the first time that streak broke, right? The double supporting thing.
Yes.
Oh no, it didn't happen the year prior either. So it was 2 years ago.
We thought it was going to happen. Yeah.
With Poor Things.
It happens. Off and on recently, especially when you have like 10 Best Picture nominees, and
if it's like a top 1 or 2 contender, like I think Sentimental Value will probably end up being.
So anyway, I think, like, as far as the unknowns, I'm just a little bit more skittish right now, but they could.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I like betting on an unknown sometimes this far out, just because if it works out, then that's awesome. And if it doesn't, well, it was an unknown, so who can blame me? But yeah, I have a lot of faith in that film and Mary Yamamoto. And just looking at the other options, I struggled picking a winner. Laura Dern's already won. From everything we know, this is another juicy role for her in another Noah Baumbach film. She could win again from with a Noah Baumbach film, but I don't feel like it. Fanning got great reviews for Sentimental Value. It'll be her first nomination. She is writing like Timmy off of the A Complete Unknown train of last year. But I just something about that, once again, like I said with Rensby, I feel
it doesn't seem
like the third mentioned performance. Yeah,
it doesn't seem win competitive, but it seems like she's on an upswing in her career. But so anyway, I think Elle Fanning right now for me, I have her in there. I have her in at number 3. I think she is very likely to get in, but I don't see necessarily a path for her to win right now. Let me see the movie first.
yeah. I don't think so either.
We agree on Laura Dern and we agree on Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow, I think, is going to have to really have the goods to break the image that people have of her.
Totally.
Some of it I find to be unwarranted. But it also was exciting to see her back in a role. I mean, this is her first non-Marvel role since Mordecai, which was a decade ago. And even she hasn't been doing that much Marvel work, so she really hasn't been working that much in the acting space. So it could be a return to form for this Oscar-winning actor. So yeah, again, I think we both have her in there.
Just based on the narrative, we don't know much about the role besides the fact that she has sex with Timothée Chalamet. So if it's a small role, then who knows? But I feel like right now, like you said, it's a strong film that probably will happen Best Picture. She's probably the best bet for supporting actress and another acting nomination for the film, and she's got good narrative. So that's what I'm running off with that.
And then as far as the two that I have that you don't, I think these are just bigger names that I feel like it's easier for me to.
You have her winning. There's no precedent for that, for sure.
There definitely is not. But just real quick, I think if After the Hunt does well, I could see we having a little bear reunion, get Io and Jeremy both nominated in the same year. We'll see. I could very easily knock Io off for somebody else. But, if After the Hunt does well, and I think it's also somebody who I think a lot of people have a lot of affinity for. And so, yeah, Ariana Grande.
I've just heard she's the smallest role of the 3. I've heard it's Robert Garfield, then her. So if the film is strong enough, she could come along.
Hey, Leslie Manville was definitely the smallest role. She was even smaller than Vicky Krieps, though I don't know where they put Vicky Krieps, if they campaigned for her and lead or supporting.
I don't remember.
But she sometimes smaller. I mean, listen, Judi Dench, she won this category for Shakespeare in Love with Gwyneth Paltrow. So sometimes smallest doesn't mean, if you use your time well, it could be. I mean, Judd Hirsch beat out Paul Dano for a nomination from The Fabelmans. I love you, Judd Hirsch, but Paul Dano should have been nominated. How is Paul Dano still not an Oscar-nominated actor?
He's high on the list of the best never nominated.
Yeah, he may be the number 1. All right, so Ariana Grande. Here's the thing. I think right now it's more that I don't necessarily see a front runner among anybody else. And I do think that the 2 actors that you mentioned that are lesser known could be number 1. I would even put maybe the I'm gonna let you say it. It looks like a Tolkien word, like it. I don't.
That's the interesting part, because I feel like Elle Fanning has a better shot at getting nominated, but I do think both of them can get in there. But if both of them get in there, I don't think.
A Complete Unknown, and we thought Elle Fanning had the better shot, and that Monica Barbaro was too young, and then look what happened. So,
but I feel like this is, from what I've read about it, the Elle Fanning role is showier, and Inga's performance is a more subtle performance. But from I've also read, she has a very emotional moment towards the end of the film.
Should we just
stick with people?
If we're splitting the gendered roles, should we just do like biggest and most subtle acting as well? Most subtle female supporting performance. So listen, Ariana Grande, again, knowing the role. If this is going to be an all-around contender in picture, in the crafts again, I do think that there's a world where I could see the narrative going that Cynthia's going to win for song, Ari wins for supporting actress, and you award both of them for this effort, this whole journey of these 2 movies. It is to me, I find this part of the role to be the most interesting part of Wicked. Because it is about how Glinda kind of takes her bubbly persona, she takes Elphaba's insurgency, and she kind of marries the 2 together, and she becomes what Elphaba wants to be, but can't, because the system won't let her be that. I find it to be a very interesting role, and if she still has that charm that people fell in love with, that made her, we both believe, the runner-up for last year, I could see the world where she is able just to take it, and it has all the things last year that we talked about that helped her get to the top of the pack.
But it's a
musical performance. I know it's a sequel, but
It's a
I would also
sequel.
position she is the lead of the movie, unless they do reworkings. We'll see. But I
People
find
don't win
Glinda
for
to
sequel
be.
leads either.
I understand that, but again, this is no press. This doesn't have a precedent. I think she's helped by. I would argue more than any of these other performances, she will have the most screen time, and that always helps. Look is always sun on you. So
Mhm.
again, it's bizarre, it's out there, but frankly, I mean, we're breaking rules every year, and right now, I'm going to enjoy the fantasy that Ariana Grande wins an Oscar for playing Glinda.
Yeah, I think the nomination will be the win for her
Mhm.
just because of the whole sequel factor.
Yeah, it could be, but I could also just see like if people go down this list and the sentimental value people split the vote if they're both in there. If people still are turned off by Gwyneth Paltrow, and they feel like you know what, Ariana Grande, she proved herself with the first film. She's better in the. I think it will help if people think she's better. I think that's often
Yeah,
not the case with sequel performances where people think they're better. Not only is she better, I think she's more of the focal point of this second film, which again all helps her. Um, and you know, she really ingratiated herself the first time. I think she proved. I think she really impressed people. I'll never forget listening to her on Smartless and like when she left and they had the little outro. Like they were surprised with how impressed they were with her. And so again, if she has the goods, which I have to think she does, I could see it happening. So we'll see.
maybe. As we saw, I don't have her on my list, but
Mhm.
it's possible. I just continue with the whole sequel factor. I feel like even the first time around with that film, towards the end, people were getting a little tired of it because they were popping up everywhere. I think you run a risk of being even more tired with them coming back around as the year.
It's the finale though, so I think they know that this is it. That might help. It's
Yeah,
like goodbye
yeah,
after this.
yeah.
Thankfully
See
this
you
isn't a
later.
trilogy.
Yeah,
The other thing I'll say is that there is no Jamie Lee Curtis. I think in the way that Angela Bassett could have won if Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't there, because I really don't think there would have
I
been
feel like Carrie
a
Condon
narrative.
maybe.
I don't think the narrative
She
for
won
Curtis.
the BAFTA.
She did win the BAFTA and she was great, but I don't know. Like I feel like like I don't know. I don't know how well known Mark Rylance was to American audiences. She could have won, and I would have been happy with that. She's brilliant in that movie. But
She should have won.
that's the other thing is that I feel like there's no obvious person that has been like waiting in
Not
the
yet. Yeah.
wings. Well, we can go to your honorable
Let's
mentions. I
see.
mean,
Sissy
like
Spacek for Time I Love, of course. I feel like she's a beloved. I forgot to. Ariana Grande is still on the side there. She would be my number 6. I forgot to put her in the
mhm.
text because she was already in yours. But yeah, Ariana Grande would be my number 6. I think it's definitely possible, but the sequel stuff is keeping me
Yeah,
not completely doing it. But Sissy Spacek is a respected previous Academy Award winner. From what I've read about the role, if the film is strong enough, she could come along. It's a juicy part, but it's not enough if the film is like not strong enough. So I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a narrative there that could formulate to kind of like maybe even a Rossellini last year, even though this is a bigger role than that.
good.
Possible. Emily Blunt for the Smashing Machine, I think is really, really possible. Something about that kind of that role just seems like the kind of thing that can get in, even if the film overall is nothing. Like the how would you describe her role? Like
The
the tragic,
linchpin, the
yeah, the linchpin, but
emotional
also like the
core.
emotional tragic like character. I feel like it's going to be more so her
Yeah,
than even Dwayne Johnson's character. So I feel
she's
like
close.
that's definitely possible.
I just worry that the movie could take her down. Like
It
that
could,
like
yeah.
she could help the movie rise, but the movie could also be an anchor on her. Like is there
Even
a
then, I
world
feel
where
like
like the movie isn't well regarded but
she's
she gets in? I don't see that happening.
I think maybe. I mean, look later down this list. Glenn Close got in for Hillbilly Elegy, which was not a well-regarded film,
That
but
was
she's
in
still,
2020, my dude, where that
and
was
that
a
was her
completely
8th
different
nomination,
world.
not her
I would
2nd.
listen
Yeah,
if Glenn Close could actually like build some sort of foundation to get in for Knives Out. I would love that. I think that would be
that would be
so
great.
cool. And there was your Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah,
Imagine if she
yeah.
won for Knives
For
Out.
the third Knives Out movie, we
That
don't know
would be
enough about the
crazy.
role. It seems like Josh O'Connor is the secondary, like Janelle Monáe, Ana de Armas character of this film, and it's not her.
Really?
But based
I,
off of the trailer
I
and
would
the
just
billing,
assume that he was like that he would that it seemed like he was always casting a woman in that role, so that would be interesting. But could be.
we'll see. Lee, another late fame actress, she plays an actress within the film who becomes interested in Willem Dafoe's character's work. I think has a bit of a relationship with him. So it sounds like maybe kind of a little bit of like a artistic femme fatale role, and I feel like she would kind of kill that We already talked about Io Debris, definitely possible. We talked about Glenn Close and Tiana Taylor for One Battle After Another. Looks great in the
She could.
trailer. I don't know. I don't something about that
You're
film.
more bullish on this movie than I am, which I think might speak to her being 11
You
and
mean like
not
negatively
higher up.
bullish?
Yeah, like you're not as
Yeah,
optimistic about its award chances.
yeah, yeah. I feel like it's going to be more of a licorice pizza performing Paul Thomas Anderson film than like a master or something like that. I feel like it's just like picture, director, screenplay, maybe one other thing, and that's probably it.
The more I consider the fact that it could get bad press coming out of a disappointing
Weak
box
box
office
office.
run, I do worry about that. So I hope Warner Brothers does not open it wide and that they do limited release. This is how La La
I believe
Land
it is
became what it
currently
was.
scheduled to be opening wide in September.
Then they need to change that. You know, people change things all the time. They just make changes. I'll never forget Dark Phoenix released a trailer and the next day they changed the release date. So you can
Oh
do whatever
wow,
you want.
you can,
So
you can.
come on.
Yeah.
I
Am I missing anyone? I think that's pretty much it for
think that's it.
supporting
Let's
actress.
finish up with these men.
Let's do it. I'm going with. I feel like more so than any race, I feel pretty. I mean, as decent as you can feel this early out, that it'll probably be one of two men winning this category. And right
I
now, I have
agree.
that man being Adam Sandler for Jay Kelly. I've talked about it multiple times on this channel before. From what I've heard about the film and his performance in it, he just seems beloved by the industry. I think it'll be his first nomination. It seems like a juicy role. It kind of reminds me of last year, Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, where it could be similar to that kind of performance and role. Yeah, I just feel great about it. Netflix is great at getting acting nominations. Wins less so, but they've won in the two supporting categories before. So I'm going with him, even though I think Stellan Skarsgård, especially because we know more about that film and his performance in it, and he does seem to be the most mentioned performance leaving the film. That I think he is definitely just as strong as a
And
contender to
what a
win, which
career. I
is what
mean,
you have.
like the fact that we forget that he was in one
He's
of
not
the
even
biggest
nominated.
movies of all time. But like he was in the Avengers. How is that like a footnote in your like
He was in
career?
Cinderella,
Cinderella. He was in
the live
Cinderella?
action Cinderella. He was the king.
The 2015, not
Yeah,
the 20,
no,
because the
not the animated
2021
film.
Cinderella was Pierce Brosnan as the king, which I think is
Oh, I didn't even.
hilarious.
I forgot that it existed. Yeah, no.
Mamma Mia, Andor, he's coming off of maybe an Emmy, if not nominated, it could be an
Hopefully,
Emmy, it could be an Emmy winning role,
at
who
least a
knows,
nomination. Hopefully,
So I think that to me, it's so crazy that I'm the one who's picking the less commercial thing. I feel
yeah,
like that's in
yeah,
most cases I would be predicting Adam Sandler, but I think
yeah.
these top two are in, and I think Andrew Garfield. I just rewatched Tick Tick Boom last night. He is stunning, and I think
He's
that
a great
he is
actor.
such a scene-stealing, effervescent personality that you gravitate to him like
And
you're
he
the
is.
chicken shop date lady. You just want
You
you
are
just he
a
has such a
million
good
miles
energy.
apart.
I was not going to
Um,
try and pronounce that name for the first time live, so bravo.
I'll keep doing it.
Um,
And he's the
so
canceled person. He is the professor who gets accused by Iowa Debris' character of, I believe,
yeah,
sexual
seems like
misconduct.
a
So
meaty
he'll be going
role.
through a lot.
I'm curious. You leaned, I think, against conventional wisdom, and you're going with Stephen Graham instead of Jeremy Strong for the
Yes,
Deliver Me from Nowhere boy. They could both get in, and this could be a
they
double
could. That
scenario.
could be it. Yeah.
Why are you leading Graham, and is it just maybe Goodwill coming off of an Emmy win for
I think
Adolescence?
that's a factor. I mean, they've both got goodwill. Jeremy Strong just got his first Oscar nomination, and he'll have the Adolescence goodwill going into the fall festival. So
And he has an
I
Emmy and
imagine
a Tony in the last couple
he'll
of
have an
years.
Emmy. Yeah. But I think just looking at the two roles, knowing I read a little bit, I did my research about Bruce Springsteen's relationship with his manager and then his relationship with his father. The two roles, the father relationship sounded much more juicy and complicated and had potential acting nomination stuff than the manager role, in my opinion. I feel like that will
It's
be.
just whether they show it, you know.
Well, he's
They
in the
could,
film.
yeah, but they could focus on one over the other. It's especially
Yeah,
when the
and
person is still alive. I'm always wary of how authentically they depict family relationships. If the family's dead, it's like Spielberg. He waited till his mother and father were dead, and then he made Fablemans. But if they're
yeah.
alive, or at least the
Springsteen, when
person
he
is
talks
alive.
about the film, mentioned Graham's performance and not Strong's. Is one thing I will say. He highlighted
Okay.
that more.
Going
so.
from the source.
That's right from the source himself. But yeah, I do think Strong's role will be bigger. I think he'll be in more of the film. The two people who promoted it at CinemaCon were Jeremy Allen White and Jeremy Strong, the two Jeremys. So I think his role will probably be bigger. I just right now something about the Graham character and that whole relationship I
That's
think will be
fair.
more complicated. That I think that's where I'm leaning. But like you
Also,
said, both of them could get in.
Bruce Springsteen's father is dead. I think I
Yes,
made
yes.
the insinuation that he's still alive. I was like, no way.
No,
But
that's not.
again, I think that I'm curious to see which one is the meteor role and which ones the actors gravitate towards. Because Jeremy Strong could just be on a roll. Got his first nomination for an
Yeah.
Oscar for The Apprentice last season, and he comes back and gets
Was that
another
the
one.
Cannes jury?
Yes,
And
I think
anytime
he's
he shows up, it's
very
a
well regarded.
juicy performance. I feel like
Yeah.
even if it's subtle,
I'm
it's
glad we moved beyond mocking his seriousness because
I
I think
don't
we
get
all
it.
should. Yeah, I don't think we should be
He takes
mocking
his
somebody
job
who takes
seriously.
their art seriously. So,
I don't
um,
understand that.
and then again, I feel like you don't have to make the case for your rental family actor if that movie's in.
Oh,
I understand it making the list. I think again, I just have to wait to see more about this movie.
yeah, that's another
I
shot in the
am
dark of like I think the film will be well reviewed, and I think it'll be either him or Takahiro Hira is also the potential supporting actor who was in Shogun. He was like the main villain in that show. One of them, but right now I feel like they almost always go with the more older veteran actor, so that's why I'm leaning more towards Akira Emoto, who I think is the
mhm.
grandfather figure. I think that kind of like a Yu Jung Yoon brings out more attention, so that's where I'm leaning
And
toward.
then nothing would make me happier than Academy Award nominee Delroy Lindo. But I
I'm
don't know.
surprised
I
you have
just
Jordan, but not Lindo. I feel like
because
Lindo makes
I
more sense.
because like what's the scene? Like I feel like Lindo's a
The
great
car
supporting
ride,
presence.
that whole monologue
Like
in the car ride is so good. That's the
I
best
guess
performance moment in the entire film, in
I
my
guess
opinion.
I don't know. I just I didn't I didn't maybe it was overhyped for me by the time I went. I just didn't get much from that character, and I think Jordan at least is it's a showier thing playing
That's the
the
lead
both
role. Yeah.
roles, and it's a lead role. So I think he could get in, but right now, I guess this is where your skittish nature when it comes to Sinners is represented everywhere but this category, and that's so we
Well, because
balance each
this
other out.
this fits the Oscar mold of like veteran actor who people respect. It's a juicy supporting role. He's comedic relief as
I
well.
don't
He's
think
the
it's that
main
juicy.
comedic
I
relief.
think it's one
I
scene,
feel like
if
that
that.
monologue is great, but he makes
All
people
right.
laugh throughout the film. I feel like in
Yeah.
supporting actor in particular, that's kind of like something that gets people's attention. And he
Not
was
in a
like,
huge
there's lots of.
Adam Sandler. I said, if,
I don't know if Adam Sandler is going to be making you laugh in this, though. I think that's what is going to be.
it's that.
I'm sure he
Listen,
will a little bit, but I feel like that's going to be a big draw of the performance.
we'll see.
He is not making you laugh. But
We'll see.
yeah, I feel like it fits the mold to me, and I think there was
Yeah.
lots of talk about him missing for Defy Bloods too. So I feel like his
He
moment
should have been in
is coming.
supporting. This is Sean Penn, which again, I'm just a little bit more optimistic about one battle after another. And Sean Penn, to talk about like Tom Hanks, two-time Oscar winner, I think is very well respected. And so I could see him getting in if
He's
the
the
movie
villain.
does well. Yeah, it'll be meaty. They love villains in this category. Robert De Niro got in for Killers of the Flower Moon here. This seems to me like
Yeah,
a very similar performance. So yeah, I think he could get in.
definitely plausible. I wonder how Sean Penn. I wonder how the larger Hollywood sphere feels about him. I feel like he's definitely a figure of sorts, but he's a two-time winner as well. So
I think
that
didn't when
helps.
he won. I think the second time for Milk, he was like, "I know I don't make this easy for you, the guys that like
I
me, so
think,
thank you for
yeah.
this."
Honorable mentions, as you said, Jeremy Strong. I think definitely possible. Paul Mescal in Hamlet. He's playing Shakespeare. It's definitely going to be a supporting part. He disappears for a good chunk of the film, but previous nominee, possible. We already talked about Andrew Garfield. Robert Pattinson got pretty good mentions out of the reviews for Die My Love, but not the kind of mentions that make me think I should throw him in my five. That's all if the film is like a huge contender, which right now I don't think it will be, at least like a top like picture contender. I have it just barely getting in. We talked about Sean Penn and Takahiro Hira, who could potentially be the other rental family mention. So there we have it. Our acting predictions in June, the best time to do them. Yeah, comment your guys' predictions down below. What performances are you most excited to see? What do you think's nominated? What's your acting winning quartet look like? Below, subscribe because you want to stay tuned for all the stuff we have coming up. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.